Edward Snowden made a surprise guest appearance this week on Russian President Vladimir Putin's press conference. Now, Putin is famous for his live TV Q&As. At the end of the nearly 4-hour press event this week, Snowden appeared via webcam to ask Putin about surveillance of civilians. Now, Putin replied with a resounding no, saying he is against spying on his people. Now, this was regarded as a very bold PR stunt, but Snowden has been in the news all week. He praised The Guardian and Washington Post for their Pulitzer Prize wins after they exposed the NSA whistleblower. The question remains, how and why did a high school dropout come to possess and expose secret NSA documents?
Two of the prizes, as I said, in public service, which is unusual but has been done before, The Guardian U.S. and the Washington Post. You should note that they're cited for revealing widespread secret surveillance by the National Security Agency and helping to stir public discussion of the balance between security and privacy. The reporting went beyond just leaked documents.
Dee Benke, John Wareham, writer and previously nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, and also Dr. Uhuru Williams, professor of history at Fairfield University and author of Black Politics, White Power. Thanks again for being here and talking about this. When I heard the announcement as a journalist, I was just thrilled for them because that's a lot of recognition, and sometimes the reporters don't always get it. So I was personally very, very happy to see them get it, but so is Edward Snowden. Dee, you want to start things off?
Okay, well, yes. First, about Mr. Snowden and his little question to Putin. Give me a break. Talk about a staged event. I mean, that's just lying.
Absolutely staged.
It was ridiculous. I mean, because it's like, okay, how does he get hooked up with Putin? Clearly, he's a stooge, and he does that. So it's just dishonest. So let's go to how bad of a guy this is. First, he's dishonest. Then he's a traitor, and he gives up all these secrets for our country. You know, so who cares what he says? Who cares what he says about these publications? I don't know why we're listening to him.
Well, I think from the Washington Post standpoint, I think they absolutely did bring up, obviously, stirred up this conversation as to how this man got his hands on this information. So from that standpoint, I'm happy this happened because it could have been worse. Dr. Williams?
Oh, I thought it was great in this sense. You award the Pulitzer for journalism that, in David Remnick of the New York Times' words, is the epitome of getting the nation to think about substantive issues relative to our democracy. So Snowden aside, this wasn't just about leaked documents. It's how the Guardian and the Post presented these issues in a way that fostered conversation. So we're not rewarding Snowden. I think really what they were rewarding is the reporting that went into how they dealt with these documents. It's hard for me, I agree with Dee in this sense. I mean, obviously this week was staged and Snowden gets to bask in the light of the Pulitzer Awards, but really this was an award for the journalism.
Absolutely.
Like the Pentagon Papers more than Snowden himself.
And they, you use the word stooge there, Dee. That's been the word that a lot of journalists have used, that he has become Putin's stooge.
Oh, and Putin does use surveillance. Hello, surveillance. Mr. KGB does not use surveillance on his people. On that one. It's unbelievable that really they had the nerve to even say it, because clearly you know he does.
Well, John, I want to talk about the Pulitzer Prize and the criteria for the nominations and the winners.
Okay. I think the Pulitzer is given for good writing. I think it's one thing to sit in front of a camera and to say what you would like to say. I mean, that's a skill of its own, but it's a different skill to write the 25,000 words for which Chamby was nominated, right? So I thought that they're trying to bring in, they're trying to alter the rules, actually. They're trying to move the goalposts so that the television reporters can be in the middle of this, because they, like Edward Snowden, would love some publicity.
Agree with that, Dr. Williams, or?
Well, I guess somewhat. You were nominated for poetry, and I think which was wonderful is that we think about the different genres of writing. And I agree that when you start to change the parameters, you really move it away from its original purpose, which was to award writing. At the same time, we're now in a post-analog nation. So, you know, we really have to respect the different vehicles by which people share information.
Yeah, I think to belittle a TV reporter is ridiculous. I mean, Mia's won 3 Emmys, and she has to write. She writes the whole show basically. So I think you're wrong in essence because it is a different type of award.
I see that you think I'm wrong, but the rules of the Pulitzer
Prize, right?
Yes, have been fixed.
Right.
And so if you would like to alter them, by all means. But as it is now, that's the way they are, right?
Well, I think there's just a lot of journalism, television journalism, yes. But, you know, you're talking about poetry, great. Fiction, nonfiction, there are a lot of categories.
Writing things. Writing, the written word, the written word.
But there's a written word with television, well, just so you know.
Yes, but there is no Pulitzer Prize, and that's what they're complaining about because that's what they don't have, and they would like it. And so they should alter the rules.
Well, we'll have to see.
Well, we'll see what happens, okay.
Right.
What about? I mean, were you proud to see that that these journalists were awarded? I mean, this does kind of go back to the Pentagon Papers, as you kind of said, and I mean,
I just wonder, not to be, well, I guess I will be the conspiracy theorist. I mean, I'm wondering, did Snowden actually leak everything to them and coordinate with them early on?
Well, we'll have to get him on the show.
I mean, I don't know. Well, there you go, man.
Apparently he's doing shows. So.
Apparently he's doing some public appearances. So
true.
we could.
Which
Fresh Outlook should be the
which
next
is
show.
exactly what he wants. He wants to be seen. He's a young man who wants to be seen, just like those 2 boys up in Boston. They found a way to get attention.
Some attention, yeah.
And so has he. And none of them understands what they're up to.
Let me ask another question in this era of television 24/7 news. It's been my personal opinion, and I try not to share too much of my opinion, but if young men like the 2 Boston bombers, like the Edward Snowden of the world, if they keep seeing that you can get attention this way, when do the journalists have to say, we're going to turn it off? We're not going to show the planes going into the building. We're not going to show the names or the faces of the mass murderers of the Newtowns. Do you agree or disagree? And we had this very debate here in the studios. One very well honored journalist believes that you should show their names because the public should know. So I'm just going to get your thoughts.
I don't, because it gives them exactly what they want. They're monsters. It feeds the monster. Why? I mean, why promote it? I mean, hang them high, give them the death penalty, you know, punish them, but I don't think we keep rewarding them in the way they want to be rewarded. They want, and actually to what you said, they're narcissistic. They want the attention. That's why they're doing it.
Sure.
Matt Whitaker at ASU talked about this post-analog America, and part of the problem now is that as much as we still rely on the news for our information, with digital technology, social networking, they'll get that attention. We saw in the aftermath of the Boston bombing, it was Twitter and Facebook that spread most of that information. So the idea now that they have to rely on the news in that sense and that the news is drawing its information from social media kind of changes the game. Anybody, unfortunately at this point, the days of having to publish your message or hope that you could capture in MSNBC are gone. You really can do that simply by being out in public square, by social media.
But they weren't really sharing. There were a lot of people were sharing where they were, what was happening, and things like that. I don't know if they got the individual attention that they were seeking via social media, but certainly that's a great point. We do have to change lanes, as we say sometimes, and we're going to talk about right now the deadly shooting in Kansas City. A 73-year-old man, as we all have heard by now, shot a 14-year-old boy, Reet Underwood, and his 69-year-old grandfather, William Corporon, execution style outside a Jewish community center. The teen was auditioning for a singing competition. A third victim, Terry Lamano, was shot outside a Jewish retirement home 1 mile away. She was an occupational therapist visiting her mother. None of the victims were Jewish, but it has raised the questions and fears about the growing number of hate groups operating in the United States. Now, according to the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, the number of hate groups has risen 54% in the past 10 years. Why? Some of the reasons given: immigration fears, a failing economy, and the successful campaign of Barack Obama. So those are some of the statistics. Now I want to get some of your thoughts on why we're seeing hate crimes growing at such a fast rate. Dee Dee,
Well, I think this guy's just crazy. He's a nut job. You know, as far
This
as
guy was, absolutely, but this guy was on a number of white supremacist, Ku Klux Klan groups. Surprisingly,
which is evil. I mean, you know, people who do that, I mean, anyone who wants to commit hate crimes against others, they need to be put away. I mean, it's just, you know, unfortunately we have this, and it is unfortunate that it is going up. I mean, I don't think it's the election of Barack Obama. I think that's a very broad statement, and it's a dangerous statement. But, you know, it is unfortunate. We should look into why. Dr. Bartlett would probably know better than we would. But these hate crimes are really terrible, but they've always been around.
They've been around, but the question that I'm asking is, why are they increasing? 54%. Dr. Williams, does that surprise you? I mean, especially with the 50th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act. I mean,
Not at all. We see this particularly in this country in times of economic crisis where people feel like the parameters of the nation are shifting. A lot of the discourse about this, if you go to the online websites that deal with some of these groups, talk about taking back America.
Yes.
The values that underscore America that are being undermined by immigration, by Barack Obama and Obamacare and socialism and so on and so forth. Now, they have a right to speak that, and of course, you want to encourage discourse about those ideas. When it turns to violence, we all as a society have an obligation to take a very hard look at what's happening and why that proliferates. But at the end of the day, it's really economic concerns and fears over immigration and sometimes politics that play into this more than anything else.
Dee said, I mean, and I was citing and quoting from the website also, but do you think that the election of Barack Obama has increased hatred?
Absolutely.
Of course it has.
No way.
Of course it has. Of course it has.
Why would you say that? I don't believe that. Maybe immigration, now that I do believe.
Okay.
Because there's such an encroachment of these people from a different country, and people feel like they're getting something that they're not. But Barack Obama, I think, is a different situation.
Southern Poverty Law Center has said explicitly that they see a direct connection between the Obama administration and concerns and fears that drive people to want to join these types of organizations. Is Obama the sole cause? Not at all.
Absolutely.
But is he kind of the capstone of a lot of fears and the idea that, you know, America somehow is being taken away?
And John, from your work, most hatred is born out of fear.
Yes. I would ask the question, why is he the capstone of this?
Because he's African American, because he's Kenyan. People say, well, he's a Kenyan and he's a birther.
He's the wrong shade.
Correct.
He's the wrong shade.
Yeah.
Says you. I think it's great that we have a black president. I mean, I don't agree with this politics.
I don't think John's saying that.
I wasn't
but
saying
still,
that.
I just think that's too. I don't like that.
There's been so much racism since he came in. We all hoped that it would end. Instead of which, a whole lot of people, and you ask this man, belongs to a white supremacist group. Don't tell me that he didn't hate Obama. And
you don't know that. And he's just a hater.
And you don't know it either, okay? But here it is.
But I'm not stating that you are.
Please go ahead.
No, I'm just saying you're stating that it's up to Barack Obama that all these hate crimes are because we elected a black president.
If it isn't clear to you, it's clear to everyone else in America, almost everyone else, that having a black man there has increased racism. Now, we hope that wouldn't be true.
Here we have the Civil Rights anniversary. No, but the Civil Rights anniversary 50 years later. How much more, we're a nation, and how much more do we have to do to make,
after this time through, I would say the next black man there, it'll be easier. Everything will be easier. But first time up, some people say, we want our country back. What are you talking about? The law hasn't changed? What are we saying
No,
here?
I think it makes it better.
What is actually the dog whistling that's going on?
No, it's a positive thing.
Dr. Williams, final thoughts?
I think when we look at it in terms of long trajectory, there have been incredible changes in American society. You have an African American in the White House. You have a Latina in the Supreme Court. You can look at even in the Bush administration, African Americans.
Yeah, but you're saying they're not.
But no, that's not what I'm saying at all.
But I would say we have a long way to go. We have to remember that when Dr. King is assassinated, right before, he's talking about poverty as the great issue that divides, that cuts across racial lines, cuts across class lines. But if we look at poverty in this country, it's still largely concentrated among black and brown people. So that's the new civil rights struggle for this generation.
Of course.
Absolutely. Dee, final thoughts?
I just think it's great that we have a black president, and I really do like that, and I think that helps the situation. I don't think it hurts. I think it is a good thing. I don't agree with his politics, but I like it that he's black. I think it's good.
Okay, we're going to switch up, and when we come back, it's time for the lightning round. It's a quick look at the lighter topics of the week.